So welcome everybody to How to Read the Daily Racing Form. This is real basics, and the reason why is because a lot of people, 43% of our survey takers, and that's over 800 people, said that learning how to read the Daily Racing Form was the hardest thing for them it was the biggest barrier to becoming a horse player for them. So the idea is that at least once a week, or hopefully once a week, we'll be able to give this a seminar that's either the same information or different information, but a variety of information on how to read the racing form, so that it's like having somebody at the track next to you explaining what everything means in there. And also like to throw in some strategy on how to use it, like how to actually pick winners. So we'll try to do that tonight. This is the first time we're doing this, so apologies in advance if anything, if there's any technical glitches, mysterious red lines start showing up, and let's get started. And it says the remaining meeting time is 8 minutes and 26 seconds. So let's hope for the best. Okay, so the first thing that we want to see, the quickest way to determine what horses are the fastest horses in this race. And the two things I look at first are the running line and the speed figure. Now, the running line will tell you that this horse started, and out of the gate, he was first. And then at the quarter, or the first call, the quarter mile, he was half length in front. Then at the half mile, he was a length in front. Then at the head of the stretch, he was second by a head. So he got past, and then he dug in, and he ended up winning by a head. So he won by a head, and that was his most recent race. The race before that, he finished 8th by 20 3/4 lengths. The race before that, he finished second by a neck. The race before that, he finished 4th by 9 3/4 lengths. So he doesn't have that great of a record. He's got one win. And the other important numbers are these numbers right here, the 36, the 30, and the 75. Those are the Beyer speed figures. And that is that's one number that has been distilled. Well, actually, I'm going to let Chris explain speed figures, but try to do it as fast as you can, Chris.
Well, it's like if you were to win a race against me, you don't have to run very fast, but if you were to race against Usain Bolt, you have to run a lot faster. So you can look at the clock. That's one way, and they do show the times of the races. So that way you look more than just the running lines. You can look at the times, but the times can be misleading because sometimes the track surfaces are faster than others. Like if you're running on the beach and you run on the wet sand, you can go a lot faster than if you get out of the wet sand and you run on the dry sand. So you want to account for that. And the speed figures take into account how fast the track surface is going, as well as how fast they ran on the clock. And it factors in some other things, but it puts it on a nice scale, small. And the Beyer figures that you see in the form, they can go all the way down to negative numbers sometimes, I think, or at least go down to 0. And they can go pretty much as high as possible, but I don't think I've ever seen one over 140. So it just gives you a sense for how fast the horse ran, given how fast the surface was, and how fast they ran on the clock. So it takes those two things into account.
Okay, so assuming that number is accurate, and we have to have some faith in speed figures, we may like some figures better than others, but let's assume that number is an accurate reflection of a horse's ability. You can see that the last race that My Liberty ran, this is the name of the horse over here, and that's the number 1. The last race the horse ran, the last number it ran was 75. Now, Super Strong, the 2 horse, doesn't have a number because he last ran in Puerto Rico, so he's somewhat of a mystery, and we're gonna have to apply some special criteria to that horse. The 3 Candyman Rocket ran an 85 in his last race and an 85 in the race before. And those are 2 of the highest numbers in this race. They are actually the 2 highest numbers. And he won both those races. He won his maiden race by 9 1/4 lengths, and then he won his last race by 1 length, and that was the Sam F. Davis, which was a Grade 3 race. So that's pretty impressive. Let's just take a quick look. King of Dreams ran a 78, but he ran it on turf because it tells you right here that if it's not a dirt track, it's going to tell you that that's a turf track, or if it's a synthetic racetrack. Boca Boy got as high as a 78 in his last race. Awesome Jerry actually got as high as Candyman Rocket 2 races ago. He ran an 85. And let's just quickly get through the rest. Hidden Stash ran an 83. And if we scroll all the way down to Sitting on Go, he ran an 84, and he ran that back in September. And it tells you the date of the race over here. Now, one thing that we want to notice about Hidden Stash is that he ran the 83, but he ran it in the same race as Candyman Rocket. So it'll tell you over here the top 3 horses of the race. Candyman Rocket won by a length. The second horse was Nova Rags, who won by a neck, and then Hidden Stash, and he was 2 3/4 lengths ahead of the next place horse, who happens to be Boca Boy. So it'll show you in bold if any of the horses that they ran against that are in the top 3 finished, it shows in bold if they're in the same race. So if we're looking at this, just purely from speed figures, we're looking at Candyman Rocket. We can see he ran a couple of 85s. So he's most likely to win this race, we think. However, there are a lot of factors that go into whether a horse can reproduce its best number on this racetrack on this day. Now, one of those factors is the track condition. And we can see over here that the track condition for Candyman Rocket's last race was fast. Sorry about that. There we go. It was fast, and it was a 1.16 race. So both track condition and distance are very important. In this case, Candyman Rocket has already proven that he can run the top number on a fast track, and we're assuming the track will be fast tomorrow, but it might not be, at a 1.16. So he looks like a pretty solid favorite. In fact, Candyman Rocket's only loss was in this race where it was a sloppy track, and it was his first race. So generally, I'm going to throw out a horse's first race just to begin with, because it's their first time out there, and anything can happen, and anything can be messing with their head. But in this case, he also had a sloppy track. Now let's look at Boca Boy. Boca Boy has a much different profile. Here he won on a sloppy track at 5.5 furlongs. So he won sprinting on a sloppy track. And his only other win, it is at the distance, 1.16, but it was also on a sloppy track. So he looks like a sloppy track move up. However, the one thing that he does have going for him, he did run a 78 in his last race against this competition. And there's reason to think that he might improve off that race, and that reason is he was coming off a layoff. And you can see that it tells you the date of the race that the last 2 races that he ran. He last ran on February 6th, but the race before that was 5 months before, in September. So he was, sort of a late fall, a fall 2-year-old at that time, and considering that he had that break, he ran a 71, which is pretty good. He had that break. He might have needed that race. So he is a possible long shot contender in this race. And I'm just going to scroll all the way down here to Sitting on Go. Now, Sitting on Go ran an 84 in this race. And I'm going to zoom in. Hopefully that looks nice and big for you. This is in September, right? In September, he ran a mile at Churchill Downs, and he ran that 84. And what's impressive about that is that he ran it when he was so young. And I'm going to give Chris an opportunity here to talk about the age of horses and what their rough equivalent is in human years, just to give you an idea.
Well, I mean, for horses, they are kind of fully mature when they're 5 years old, and the female horses, the mares and fillies, a little bit sooner. So, by the time they're 5, they're fully mature. But when they're like a 2-year-old in the spring or summer, in this case, it was the fall. They're like when they start those baby races, they really are babies. It's like elementary school kids almost. The early 2-year-old races, and then by the fall they might be in middle school to junior high kind of age. So you'd expect them to run much slower than the fully mature horses, but they rapidly mature. And the 3-year-olds this time of year now, they're more like high school students, and by the time it gets to later in the year, they'll be college aged horses, and then as 5-year-olds, they're in the pros. So there's quite a bit of difference, and that's why when you see like a Beyer speed figure of 84 for a horse in September, if the horse matures normally and develops like the typical horse would, you'd expect it to run, maybe as much as 10 or 15 Beyer points faster by the time you get to the Kentucky Derby. So the fact that Sitting on Go ran an 84 back in September means now that we're into March, there's a good chance if he um, is capable of running much faster, but he hasn't lately, which would indicate to me that there's some physical problem, probably, something that's prevented him from developing like he should. But if there was something in his line going forward that indicated maybe he's gotten over that problem, like in this race, let's say he runs better than he has in his last 3, that might tell you he's turned the corner, and his next race he might be able to really make a big move forward based on how fast he was as a 2-year-old. So by projecting that number forward, you can kind of gauge how much a horse could improve. And sometimes you can get horses that get overlooked, like Sitting on Go. It looks like he's really he's never run any faster than any horse in this race, but that 84 indicates that he's capable of running much faster today if he was healthy and sound and fit.
Yeah, so let's put it this way. It wouldn't be a shocker for Sitting on Go to run a 100 today. I mean, it would be a surprise because he hasn't been running well lately. The other thing that you want to keep in mind here, in his last race, he stumbled at the start. And it was a pretty serious stumble. I saw the replay. So that's something to consider. And I noticed that right before that race, that was January 30th. And if you look back here, January 16th, he ran his fastest 5 furlong workout ever. It was a 59.4, second out of 40. So he looked like he was sitting on go, and he stumbled at the start. And I think that you can probably toss the race. So he is a long shot possibility, and it's something to consider. It's a way of looking at these basic PPs and still being able to possibly glom onto a long shot, and that long shot could be in a contest, or it could be for in a pick 5. It could be like, hey, let's throw him in there just in case, or it could be just to win, especially if you like something else about him. Now, one thing that's interesting about Hidden Stash, he was only a length and a quarter behind Candyman Rocket. And he's 4-1, and that's not, it's not a great price, but he might drift higher. He might be 5-1. And one key about him is that he was coming off a layoff. His previous race before the February 6th race was November 28th. And, he might have needed that race. And he has improved every single race, every speed figure. It's never gone back, right? He was 64, 64, 74, 78, 83. So I would say, from a value standpoint, the most likely winner for me, if I was playing, say, a pick and pray contest, I would either choose, in this case, Hidden Stash, because I think he's sort of the most likely value winner. But I also might choose Sitting on Go because he's got that complete blow everybody else out of the water possibility look to him. So that's where I stand as far as picking a winner. Now, I just want to find out if everybody realizes that you can get these PPs for this race on Sport of Kings. Is everybody here a Sport of Kings player? And if you're not, I'm going to assume most people here are Sport of Kings players because I recognize a lot of the names. But if you're not, just put something in the chat or unmute yourself or raise your hand. I'm not sure exactly how it has to happen. But is anybody here not a Sport of Kings player?
Mute. Oh, I'm not Sunshine Lewis here. So I just go to the website and sign up?
Yeah. Well, have you, so how did you know about this, from Twitter?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I'll demonstrate. I'll show you how to do it on the website. On the website, great. Once you're registered, you have to be registered, because if you're not registered, you go to free pass performances, they're not going to show up.
Okay.
So if you want the free pass performances and still don't want to play the contest, you can actually do that, but you have to register, right?
Okay.
And the way you do that,
so just register for an account.
Yeah, just register, and we ask you a bunch of information.
Okay.
And we put you on our mailing list, which you can always still remove yourself from the mailing list. Cool. But that's how you get in. Now, so if I'm not logged in, I can't see the past performances. So I have to sign in.
Perfect. I'll do that.
Okay, great.
Okay, great. I'm going to unmute now. I'm going to mute.
Okay, right. So there it is. And I guess I don't know how long we've been going with the delay that we had, but should we do Q&A, or would you rather just go straight into the San Felipe? Okay, so let's go to the San Felipe, and let's just do a quick run through. We can see that Life is Good on January 2nd, which is really, it's 2 months ago. He ran a 101, and he was the 1-5 favorite. And in his first race, he was also the 1-5 favorite. So he's always been a good thing kind of horse. He's 4-5 morning line. I'm not sure if he'll be lower. I would guess he will be lower, because he just looks like that kind of horse. He's just one of these Baffert horses with Mike Smith, same connections as Justify. So that's where we're at. But without having read about it, I asked myself, why has this horse been off for 2 months? Is it just because Baffert wants to put in 2 preps for him before the Derby? Probably, but I also saw the replay of that last race, and he looked a little wonky on the gallop out. I didn't think he looked that fluid, so I think maybe he needed that time. Now, Dream Shake ran a 96 in his first win, which was a win by 4 3/4 lengths. The only thing about Dream Shake, that first race was 6.5 furlongs, and that was February 7th. So 4 weeks after that race, that big number, he's all of a sudden going to go sprint to route. And in a grade 1 race, well, it's a grade, what is it, a grade 2 race? It tells you up here it's a grade 2 race. It's a mile and 16th, just in case anybody didn't know. So that's the thing about Dream Shake, right? And I happen to have looked it up on Formulator. This trainer going sprint to route, first race to second race, he's 2 for 40, and those 2 wins were both on the turf. So it's not something he does, so I would not be interested in Dream Shake. Medina Spirit is really interesting. He won his first race with a 76 speed figure, Beyer speed figure at 5.5 furlongs. Then in his next race, he went up against Life is Good. And you know what? He was only 3/4 of a length behind, and he was 13 lengths ahead of the third place horse. So that was a pretty impressive race. And then perhaps his best race, even though he only got a 91 Beyer figure, was his last race, where he was battling it out on the front end the entire way, and he still hung on, won by a neck, and then he ended up galloping out better than all the other horses. So he was really battle tested in that race, and I'm pretty impressed. So the difference between him and Life is Good is that, he almost beat Life is Good. Then a month later, he ran another great race, and Life is Good has been off for 2 months. So you got to give this horse a serious shot at beating Life is Good. None Above the Law, like his best speed figure is 69, so we could probably toss him. The Great One looks potentially impressive. He's got a 92 buyer speed figure. He won his maiden race at a mile by 14 lengths, and his jockey, Abel Cedillo, decides to stay with this horse. And this horse is trained by Doug O'Neill, who's won 2 Kentucky Derbies. So that is saying something. And 4-1 might be a little light, but if Life is Good is bet down to 1-5 again, you might get something more like 8-1 on this horse. And then Governor's Party, he looks a little light on the speed figures since we're looking at horses in the 90s and 100s. So he is probably justifies his morning line of 50-1, which is right there. And then Roman Centurion is very interesting. He almost beat Medina Spirit, who almost beat Life is Good. So he was in that race that Robert B. Lewis looked pretty impressive. I've handicapped this race, and I personally think that the most likely winner is Medina Spirit. However, I wouldn't blame anybody for saying like, "Hey, Life is Good. He could be like Justify, right? Justify was undefeated. The only difference is he actually started as a 2-year-old. So if you had that perspective, it wouldn't surprise me. And who knows? Dream Shake may be something special also. And we'll just we'll take a quick look at the breeding. The sire was Twirling Candy, who could route plenty good, and then the dam is was by Street Cry, who is an exceptional influence on all kinds of runners. Since I don't really have to explain that much here, I don't know if we want to do a Q&A here.
So I am looking at the book that I went down to my 7-Eleven and bought. So not the PDF DRF, but what DRF puts out to sell at the convenience stores.
Okay.
And I'm looking at the PDF. Okay. So here, so see on the Great One, the number 5.
Yeah.
Okay. You see how it has the bolded C? I need to know exactly can you tell me about that? They come in C's and they come in S's.
Yeah. That is it's a symbol saying that it was a closer's racetrack that day.
Oh, okay.
Now that I don't know if that is I believe it's received some criticism, the C and the S. The S means that it was good for speed, and the C means it was good for closers. I have seen some criticism as to the accuracy of those things. In this case, it would imply that the Great One was close to the pace for the first half mile, or at least pretty close to the pace for the first half mile, but that that it was really more of a closer's bias that day. So I wouldn't say necessarily, based on my experience, that those C's and those S's mean much, but that's what they mean. That's what they mean. I just don't know how effective of a handicapping angle they are. If anybody else has,
and then
and you had another question?
Just one more, and I'll let everybody else talk. But on the using the same example, the number 5. Under the jockey's name, you have the Timeform US Pace, and then you have early 113 and late 70s. So can you just talk about that a little bit?
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good question, especially because it doesn't show any Timeform Pace figures here otherwise.
Right.
And it's a PDF. Now, if you're in Formulator, you can display the Timeform Pace numbers underneath their running line. And
But I
and
can
that's
I can
good.
jump in on this one, Scott, if you want.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll let Chris. Chris probably knows better than I do how to explain this. Go ahead,
So
Chris.
they look at the whole running line, and Timeform US, which is now owned by DRF. It's another past performance, and it uses pace figures for the horses along with final time figures.
Okay.
And it does that for every race. And then what it does, they have an algorithm, and it's proprietary, but it looks at all the past racers for that horse, and it kind of comes up with an overall kind of projected early pace number for that horse. And that's what that, first number on there that says early 113, they're saying it's kind of like a buyer speed figure, but for the early pace. So they're saying it at the second call, which in a, I don't know if all of you are familiar with the different calls, but for this a route race, that would be at the half mile. Actually, it would be the first call. So in a route race, it'll be at a half mile. But they're saying it's a 113. They also look at how the horses finish, and they assign a late pace figure. So that's how they finish the last part of the race. And I think that's from the second to the last call to the last call, but I'm not sure on that.
Okay.
But it's how they finish up the race. So you can see, this horse, the great one, and you can see it on his running line, tends to get out fast and then kind of slow down at the end.
Okay. So he would be like considered an early speed horse?
Right. And that what you can do is look at that early pace figure 113 and compare that to the early pace figures for the other horses.
Okay.
To see if you think this horse can get the lead, or he's kind of need the lead type that's not going to get the lead. So like if you look at Life is Good, his early pace is really fast. And so that tells you that probably any horse that needs to be on or near the lead is going to go faster early than they want to.
Okay.
And this horse is a good example. The great one, he ran that monster race his last start, but he wasn't chasing Life is Good in that race. And
correct. Right.
So now he's very unlikely to be able to reproduce that effort if he tries to chase Life is Good in the early part
now.
Of
If
the
you go
race.
down to Roman, he just scrolled past Roman Centurion, and that is in a sense flipped. So would he be considered a closer?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Okay, perfect.
And he is clearly the highest late pace number, and it's based on 3 races. So that's an angle that you could take in this race. You could say, hey, like there's the Great One and Life is Good are could potentially get into a duel, and with that hot pace up front, you may want the horse with the best late pace projection, which in this case is Roman Centurion.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much. That's so helpful.
Yeah, and he was only beaten a neck by Medina Spirit last time.
Right.
So if Medina Spirit gets a little tired, although that's a horse that's shown it can sit off the pace sometimes or go to the lead. But I mean, that's how you can use those pace figures to see who's going to get the lead and how contentious it'll be up front. And like Scott said, in a race where it looks like the pace should be pretty sharp like this one, which horses do you expect to really be finishing at the end?
Right. I really like the way that's laid out in your form. I'm a very visual learner, so I like that it's so cool to see it straight, and you're looking straight down.
You're meaning like as if we're the daily racing form? Is that what you mean?
Yes. Yeah. This format, this how you guys do your.
Okay. Yeah. Because we actually don't work for the daily racing form, but.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I like how they lay it out.
We're hoping to partner with them, right? We're hoping to have a long-term relationship with them because, we want to teach other people we want to teach new players how to read the form so that more of us can enjoy the sport together.
Correct.
All
awesome.
Right.
Well, that helps me.
Great. Any other questions out there?
Thank you. Scott, can I ask one question?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's just look at Life is Good, right?
Yeah.
The buyer's 101, right?
Yep.
Let's go all the way right beside the odds. What's the 90 and the 17?
Okay, that's That's
question.
it's a legacy sort of. It's based on the track record, and I'm going to see if I can remember it. But I think the 102. Well, let's first look at the 90. The 90 means that he ran 10 fifths off the track record. Correct me if I'm wrong here, Chris.
No, because I think that the track variant is in the 17 somehow.
Yeah,
I
I would
looked at
totally
it in
ignore
so
that
long,
number.
I forget.
Yeah, I would ignore those numbers. They're really worthless.
Okay, that's what I want to hear. Okay,
But
Okay.
they are based on the track record, and they do come up with a variant, but
Yeah.
it doesn't take into account track speed or any. It's really not. At one time, it was better than nothing, but
right.
I would use
because
the
I've been
Bayer
doing it for a long
figures and
time.
ignore that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what they should do is they should get rid of it then. What they should do.
Yeah, but there's probably people out there that don't want to, it's like they've been using that for 50 years and they don't want you to
they're
get
like
rid of
me. I know the track variance involved somehow. Anyway.
Yeah, that's what that 17 is supposed to be.
Right.
It's a kind of a track variant, but it's not a Bayer type variant, and it's not very accurate. So I would ignore that. I wouldn't spend any time on that at all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I wish I could explain it exactly what it is, but I believe the 102 means that he ran 2 ticks faster than the track record. So he may have set a track record at 6.5 furlongs at 115. That's possible at Del Mar, but that the variant was 7 ticks off the track record, and then in this case he ran 10 ticks off the track record, but that also doesn't make sense because that would mean the track record is 134.3, which would not be the case. It would have to be faster than 134.3.
Yeah, I'll look at some old books that I have, handicapping books. It'll be in there for sure. Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, just hopefully the pages won't crumble in your hands.
But that's probably something that they will eventually take out. But it's sort of like an artifact that when people are been using it for many, many years, they don't want to tick off their longtime customers by taking it out.
The thing about the Bayer rating is that, I'm a pretty big fan here. So Andy Bayer has not had the Derby one in the last 3 or 4 years.
Well,
so
that doesn't mean that doesn't mean his numbers aren't accurate. It just means that he's not a good handicapper, or
exactly. No, I know, but I'm just
or
saying
he hasn't had luck recently. I mean,
yeah,
I wouldn't say he's not a good handicapper because he's a legend, and he did have his 50,000 a year at the races. But
what I meant really is the Bayer is really just one of the chapters in the book you have to handicap with. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Because I mean, he ran a 101 in the Sham.
Yeah.
But Medina Spirit ran a 99, so I mean he was less than a length behind, and Medina Spirit could be better now.
Yes.
It's past performances. It's not future performances.
Correct.
You have to, the handicapping is deciding whether he's going to run that 101 again or better or worse.
Well, yeah. Plus, there's the new jockey changes. I mean, there's all kinds of factors. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's why we love handicapping, right? Because there's so many factors.
One other question, if you don't mind, real quick. And I mean, I don't know how quick you can go, but on the notes. So obviously, like 90% of the notes are very understandable. But where do you get the Where do you get like the slang book, the book to know like what these notes mean? Like held gamely. What does held gamely mean? Or what does roused? I mean, free wide, I understand he went free wide, but what does roused mean? Like, he gets
roused means that he was shaken up and probably whipped.
Oh, okay.
Roused.
But how do you learn the lingo other than being a
you
track person?
You have to email the host and ask Scott all the questions. He'll answer.
I think
it's a good
there
question.
There is a place on the site. I'm trying to find it right now where they show all the DRF terms.
Okay.
If we can see
DRF
it,
don't they have a library? I think they have a library, right? I can go to that library and
or glossary.
Yeah, library
Yeah,
glossary. Yeah,
I
I
think
know they
there's a
have some.
glossary of terms of some sort, and I'm trying to
Okay.
find it. But
Okay, perfect. No, I'll find it. Oh, I'll find it.
click
I don't know
on
how to find
Yeah,
chat.
and this is like the first step in
Oh,
in
there's
creating
chat.
a repository.
Oh, perfect.
So we hope that everybody will, we hope that eventually new fans, like let's say Sunshine, that you introduce somebody else to the game. We hope that you'll then refer them to the source of like where you learned a lot of it, which would
Right,
be
right.
hopefully Sport of Kings. So we hope to become a sort of a portal to new players getting into the game. And
Awesome.
at some point, like all the links that Chris is putting together right now, and all the answers to these questions, hopefully they'll all be in one place.
Great.
All right. Well, I know that
Awesome.
we only have 3 minutes before they disconnect, so I'm going to thank everybody for joining us, and let's. I'm just going to bring this over here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks for
Good
joining
night.
us, and
Thanks a
you
lot.
know,
I just added you on Twitter. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
all right, great.
Perfect.
Thanks
Good
a lot,
luck, everybody, this weekend.
Bye,
good luck.
Sunshine.
Good
Bye.
luck.
Pick some winners.
Take care, folks. Have a good night.
Cash.
All right,
Good
bye
night.
bye.
Tickets.
Don't forget to
Bye.
cash. Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
Keep on cashing, as they say.
Keep on cashing.
Wow. Good
All
luck.
right.
Thanks, folks.
Good
Have a
luck.
good one, everybody.